Hi everyone, this is Moina Bass Fishes. I am Jim Moina, Chief Coordinator of Lake Explorations here at Moina Bass Fishes. In this video, I'm just going to give a brief summary of how it went out there on Lake Mille Lacs for me today. Today is like November 20th, 2025. And I basically got in about 3.5 hours of fishing out there on Mille Lacs. Fishing for smallmouth bass, and I never caught a fish, any kind of fish at all. Water temperature was 41 degrees on the surface. I saw lots of fish on the forward sonar, but most of which were non-smallmouth fish. So I don't know if they were walleyes. They wouldn't move for my baits at all. So I don't know what they were. But a lot of them were suspended about 1 to 2 feet off the bottom. They weren't stuck to the bottom. And man, I reeled my baits past a whole bunch of that stuff today. And that stuff didn't even move. It didn't even, if anything, it would like dart away from the lure that I was throwing. The lures I was throwing, I was kind of in a search mode because I'm not familiar with Lake Mille Lacs, especially at this time of year. I don't know where they hold up this time of year. On the lakes that I am familiar with, a lot of times I'm looking for humps or deep underwater point extensions with some rock on them. That's where I find them. So on Mille Lacs, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for, some big boulders on some humps, some boulders on some long underwater extended points. And it's primarily looking in 15 plus, 15 to 22. And there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of that kind of water out there. And I did find some just beautiful boulders in some places. But, nothing would even swim after my bait. Nothing. You throw the bait out there, swim it by the big boulder or two, and nothing would come for the bait. At one time I think I had a muskie kind of coming after a bait, but just half-heartedly. And then another time I had another fish coming for it, but it was trailing behind it, like 3-4 feet, and never really closed the distance until it just faded off the bait. And I'm reeling my baits right along the bottom or close to it, within 2 feet of the bottom. Because from what I've seen, that's where, in the lakes that I'm familiar with, that's where these fish end up being. They end up hugging the bottom. These smallmouth are tight to the bottom. Oftentimes, or most of the time when the water's this cold, I'm not seeing the fish. They are peeling off the bottom signal. So that tells me they're just stuck right on the bottom. And yeah, so that's, the part of the lake I fished was, here's how that went. So I was leaving from Frankie's Live Bait Marine in Sasago City, which is southeast of Mille Lacs, about an hour and a half. So maybe an hour and 40 minutes, something like that. So I picked up my boat there, just had a few cosmetic things that needed done to the boat, and some new spark plugs. Got some new spark plugs put in the boat. So anyways, so the plan was to fish the southwest part of the lake and the southeast and east side of the lake. And when I got up to Isle there, the wind was blowing. Not bad, but it was blowing. And when I left Sasago City, all the lakes around there were like glass. So by the time I got up Mille Lacs, there was a little bit of wind going on, and it was coming out of the northwest. So all that eastern stuff had some wave action to it, and I checked 3 different boat landings. The one in Isle, that's right by McCoyd's there. I didn't want to launch there because there's a couple boulders in that little channel. The water's low, and there's a couple boulders in that channel that, you could actually hit those boulders as you idle out of there. Plus, I was planning on fishing further up the shore, so there were 2 boat landings north of there, probably 3 and 6 or 7 miles north of there. Nobody was at those landings. The docks were pulled in. The waves were blowing in on it. So I decided, and I didn't like the wave action out there. It was like the windy shoreline, the windiest part of the lake probably. So then I made a judgment. So then I just made a, adjustment, a improvisational sort of a judgment call, and decided I'll just drive all the way around to Garrison, which is on the way to where I live here in north central Minnesota, because that's where I was headed ultimately. It's where I'm sitting right now. So, anyways, I go around Malmo, and then across the northern part of the lake, get over to Garrison, which is on the northwest, and all that area is all fairly. I mean, there's there's wave action, but it's small. The biggest waves I got into were maybe 1.5 feet. So that was all good and fishable over there. So I fished from, I looked at the Garrison Reef. I looked at some of the rocks that were closer to shore, and then down south of there, south of Terry's, which is where Terry's boat harbor there, which is where I put in. There's a boat landing in Garrison, which I put in before, but with the water's kind of low on Mille Lacs, and the docks are in, and it was all like rubble, like rock rubble, like this size and that, right up onto the boat landing. So there was really no place I could beach my boat. So I went to Terry's, paid the $15 there to the. It's the first time I ever launched there. It's a good launch because it's in a little harbor. It's got some depth to it. So this time of year, when all the other launches, have no docks, and that Terry's it's a good landing. They do charge. I mean, they charge you for it. It's $15. It's the first time I ever launched there. But the gal that was in there taking the money, she was super nice and friendly, and so that was good to see. So yeah, and plus, at private launches like that, you always feel, at least I do, I feel a little bit safer about my truck, sitting at the boat landing. But anyhow, moving on from that. So yeah, so I fished the Garrison Reef, and then there's just that part of the lake with just didn't see much. A lot of fish. I don't know what they were, but they were in like 12 to 15 foot of water. A lot of them. A lot of fish, and that's where I saw some muskies hanging out. Kind of wish I had a muskie rod with, but I didn't. So, and it was cloudy today. It was cloudy. I mean, when we clear it off now, it's like you can see the stars really good here right now. But the lake, or when I was out on the Lake Mille Lacs there, it was cloudy. And yeah, so that's my report. Not a whole lot to say. It's just this time of year it can be tough. With the water down at 41 degrees, it's just can be real tough. We don't have a lot of time left here to fish before we actually get ice up. I think ice up can start happening any time now, really. So days are numbered. I don't know if I'll get out again or not. I'd like to think I am, but I actually have to do on Monday. I've got an appointment. Well, that's a whole nother thing. I got appointment for my truck on Monday. So yeah, so I won't have a tow vehicle. So unless I use my old truck, which I don't trust to go half a mile anymore. All right, that's the report. Wish I had more to say about that, but it's just this time of year, it's cold. And I got cold. I got chilled out there. Air temperature would have been, like 39-ish, maybe 40. Yeah. So just I struggle when it gets within 1 or 2 weeks of ice up. I struggle with my fishing. There's a bite to be had. I know If I go down towards Brainerd, I can probably catch some there right now. But that was just, I didn't want to go past Mille Lacs. I could have came to my lake here. I know right where to go to catch them. Could have came right here and caught fish. But I would have lost a whole nother hour of fishing of daylight at least. I would have had about 2 hours, 15 minutes to fish here. At least I would have caught something. But at my lake, you don't have 6-pounders at my lake. Mille Lacs, you got 7-pounders. So that's why I wanted to go to Mille Lacs, just try to catch a whopper. And maybe, and plus it's, I'm not that familiar with it, especially this time of year. But even any time of year, I don't really fish on Mille Lacs very often. I've fished 3 tournaments ever out there. One was pretty much a largemouth only tournament, many, like 20 plus years ago. And then about 5 years ago, I fished 2 tournaments back-to-back weekends right on the spawn. And that's it. So I really don't get out on Mille Lacs too much. But it is the place to go in Minnesota if you want to catch a 7-pounder or a 6-pounder. That's for sure. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, and this video is over and out.